most subcomponents are not particularly great in Second Life. Communications tools, the social networking tools, the building tools. You can look at almost any subcomponent and says like, wow, that could really be so much better. The cool thing we have is that the sum of these kind of nutty parts is still the most amazing thing that exists on the market today. And that's after 11 years. No one else has really figured out how to create this incredible environment that has this level of freedom and openness, ability for users to take it where they want to take it.
So that was Ebbe, the new CEO?
Yes, that was he.
And he didn't record a station ID for you guys either?
Nope.
Well, I can do one.
Yeah, just do it.
You are listening to the Drax Files Radio with Joe Yardley.
Yes, that's the spirit. Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre. I'm here with Joe in 1920s Berlin in our little attic across from the Wäscherei. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
What is Wäscherei in English?
Laundrette.
That's right. Anyway, let's cut to the chase right away. On the show today, highlights of Ebbe Altberg's keynote at the Virtual World Best Practices of Education in Education Conference, and analysis from Liz Falconer, Professor of Technology and Advanced Learning at the University of the West of England, and Stylianos Mistakidis from the University of Patras in Greece, e-learning manager and virtual worlds expert there. Both of these folks are on the ground with actual students teaching, so it's going to be very interesting to hear their reactions to Ebbe's pledge to reconnect with the educational sector here in Second Life. Couple of housekeeping notes. Please subscribe to the show on Stitcher. You find the banner on the right. It's a great way to be up to date and mobile with the show. You can fast forward through my rants and just pick up the cherries of Joe's accurate intellectual analyses.
That's what I do.
I don't doubt it. You can get in touch with us with Skype, Drax Files. You can email radio@draxfiles.com. Send an in-world message to the avatar Drax Files. There's a few sponsorships available. We have new sponsors, but we have a few left. Now, you may remember that we are in the process of giving away 2 Leap Motions, that little device that wants to push forward the death of the mouse and keyboard. You need a Leap Motion. I know, Joe, you need one. I need to send you one.
Yes.
Anyway, the Leap Motion detects your hand positions, your gestures. You can operate a computer like Tom Cruise in Minority Report without joining Scientology. So we had 2 callers who left a voicemail stating their opinion about the Facebook Oculus deal, and they are the winners of a Leap Motion. The first that called was Biene Rodenberger, and here she is.
I just wanted to share with you how I feel about Facebook buying the Oculus. I think it's a great thing because then maybe it will get out to more people cheaper, quicker. Thanks. Bye.
And Neocortex called as well. Here he is.
Hi, guys. This is Neocortex. About Facebook and Oculus. Well, I'm an owner of an Oculus DK1. Actually ordered the DK2 as well. I've been visiting Second Life and OpenSim with several viewers with the Control-Alt-Delete one and recently with the Linden Lab one. I think that takeover might be a great start for something big. And if I understood Zuckerberg right, when he was telling he wants to start something like the Oasis, the Matrix, whatever you call it. The downside, of course, well, Facebook is about making money. And that's what all these metaverse things will have to be about because, well, they take some serious amount of hardware if you want to have some serious guys connected to it. Might be good, might be bad. I think we'll just have to wait and see what's coming out of there. Let's hope it's for the best.
So that was easy to win a Leap Motion. Congrats to you both. You just leave a 30-second voicemail and there you go.
Congratulations.
It's a German guy and a Dutch woman. I mean, what gives?
Yay.
Let's move on to the real news. Joe, you blogged about a lot of stuff.
I always do.
There are Oculus competitions out there, obviously. There's a lot of head-mounted displays coming on. There's the Totem from True Player Gear. And what I find interesting is that they have outward-facing cameras. So you can switch between complete immersion, and then you can switch to looking at the real world.
Well, the Totem's got a few things that the Oculus Rift doesn't have. Besides those lenses that you talked about, the cameras, they also appear to have a much better system for the eyes. How you can make it work with whatever your quality of your eyesight is. But of course, putting these cameras in is making it also very interesting. It's going to make it more expensive, which is not a good thing. But on the other hand, I have to admit and take a few steps back on things I used to say. It's pretty much impossible to use the keyboard. And I remember saying, well, I'm a blind or a touch typist. It's not going to be much of a problem for me. But it is. The second you put that thing on, your computer sort of vanishes into the dark. Typing is really, really difficult. So this is actually quite a good option. Although, on the other hand, it does destroy the immersion. Every time you have to do something, you need the keyboard. We have to get rid of that anyway. But for now, being able to switch between what you see in the virtual world and reality is quite handy. But
also going forward, and I think we hear Ebbe later on, and he spoke about that too, is that folks see a conversion, a melting together of virtual reality and augmented reality, and that we then have a choice, and we can have overlays over the real world. We talked about it last time. Maybe you go through real life Berlin, and with the flick of a switch, it turns into another period in time.
And then you cross the street and get hit by a car.
Well, that will be unfortunate. Yeah, that's true.
But at least it will look like a 1920s car.
It will block out all the cars and turn them into horse carriages. At least you were run over by a horse.
I'm not that much into augmented reality. I don't do mobile devices. Only use I really have for any of these headsets is total immersion in a virtual reality world. Although I do agree that eventually someone's going to combine them, and that will probably be interesting to most people. Quite frankly, I only care about the virtual reality side, and with that, you want total immersion. Having said that, these cameras can also be used, of course, to film what you see around you, but also to register what they see around you. For instance, if you use this headset with cameras, it can film your real life surroundings and perhaps adapt your virtual world to that to keep you from walking into walls.
It's interesting that I'm a fan of total immersion as well for many different purposes, but it surprises me that you are not that thrilled about augmented reality. I mean, your Ghosts of War project, where you superimpose images from the past onto the present, for example, that suggested to me that would be something you personally would be very interested in.
Well, I can see the bonus of it, and of course that is exactly what I'm doing with my Ghost of War project. But I agree with that, but on the other hand, I don't see myself using it, so that makes it, I know it's very egocentric, but I just don't see it happening.
You are the single biggest market that every marketer worries about to please you.
Nobody cares about me. I don't buy anything modern, so advertisement and commercial companies, they don't care about me at all. I'm the enemy. Everything I own is 80 years old.
Except for the Oculus Rift Dev Kit 1.
Yeah, exactly. You should see this black plastic box in the middle of my 1930s Art Deco room. It doesn't fit.
There is another one. There's a mobile head-mounted display from Game Face Labs.
It's one of the prettiest ones so far.
Well, you just told me you're not interested in mobile.
Wireless, that's the word I would use to describe it. And that means that you can stand in the middle of your room and just turn around completely 180 degrees, and you won't get into trouble with the wires. People like us who use immersive realities, virtual realities, we only care about one thing, if we're honest, and that's the quality. If Coca-Cola is going to produce one that is being made by Chinese slave labor, but it is, half the price of the Oculus Rift and 50 times as good, most of us will buy it anyway.
That's what worries me. Anyway, what I forgot about the Totem is also that there's a couple other things that are interesting. They have a surround sound, and you brought my attention to an interesting article about a concert with the musician Beck. The surround sound is achieved by binaural recording technique, which is in German is called Kunstkopf. In English, it's called dummy head recording. So you actually put the microphones into a dummy head at the position of the ear, and then when you record music, you really have the binaural sound experience. And you sent me an article on TechCrunch about where Beck recorded with several microphones, I think 8 microphones in that dummy head, but then also filmed a 360 with 9 cameras, I believe.
You're going to be actually there because the sound will be exactly as it is when you're there.
Well, let's clear this up. You hear the coloration of the music and the volume, the loudness and the coloration, and those localization cues will change with your position of your head. The visual and the oral experience is obviously synchronized. So when you move your head a certain way, the sound comes from that direction and is colored depending on where it bounces back from.
This is also showing another useful virtual reality instead of gaming. And I can imagine people in a couple of years grabbing the virtual reality headset and being part of a concert, live or on television, and having a different kind of experience than we can ever imagine at the moment.
It's really fascinating how then in an ecosystem when these experiences are offered, let's say, what does a world like Second Life, will it retain a value or will it be important? I mean, I would, of course, argue that absolutely because of the creative aspect. But maybe it is completely sufficient for most people to just sort of plug in at the end of the day to a Beck concert and that's it.
Oh, absolutely. How many people are making their own television at the moment, or even their own entertainment of any kind? People like to be force-fed entertainment, which is fine. The most important thing about Second Life, I think, at the moment is that we offer the option to make something yourself. Nobody else is really offering it in that same way. And, of course, once you get your virtual reality headsets and people start using it en masse, then Second Life becomes interesting again.
We have to move on to Ebbe Albeck because he's talking exactly about that. That Second Life or Linden Lab is very closely looking at what's happening and trying to stay on the ball. Real quick, I just wanted to let folks know if they have $1,500 lying around, they can buy Google Glass right now. I don't have that money, and if I had it, I wouldn't be interested in buying it, but Google is offering this.
Yeah, I hate the thing. Don't wear it when you come and meet me, because you'll have a problem.
Culturally, it's the same thing as someone in a conversation who would constantly glance down at a phone and update their Facebook page. To me, this is culturally not acceptable.
What you've got here is someone who's looking at you, and you can't see if they're doing something else. And also, I think that you can't see if they're filming you. So you have to compare the Google Glass with someone talking to you while holding their mobile phone right in front of their face. And they may be filming you, or they may be playing some sort of game. Do they still play Tetris? Maybe playing a game while they're talking to you. But if you do that to me, you're in really serious problems.
All right, don't do it to Joe if you have Google Glass. Just go visit someone else.
They sort of need a big flashing red light and siren the second they start recording.
All right, we have a lot of other articles that you put together about Facebook and Oculus and other related things, the story behind the deal, interesting things. Also an article, brief blog post about the major players to watch out for in virtual reality. And lo and behold, Linden Lab is mentioned in that post. I find it interesting. I find it a quite accurate description of those players.
Whoever wrote that actually knows quite a bit about Second Life, and it's nice to see a journalist not talk about what it was like in 2007.
Yeah. Although those were the good old days. There was no voice and nothing to distract us from playing with prims. Now, let's move on to our feature. We want to talk about Ebbe Altberg. He spoke at the Virtual World Best Practice of Education. There are transcripts available from Inara Pay and full audio and video from Mel Burns and others. We're going to play about 15 minutes of highlights of the speech, of the keynote. It has to be noted that after taking plenty of questions already from the audience, Ebbe came back in World to hang out with folks, talk some more. and, talk about a ruler that has his ear to the ground. I think that's kind of cool. Real quick, what stood out for you other than Ebbe was wearing one of the new full mesh starter avatars and looked pretty handsome?
Oh, did he say things as well?
I see. You were just staring at him.
Well, he talked about so much, and it was all very interesting. The most important thing to me was how he was talking about it and that he was talking about it, because he was so open. There was this wave of communication and honesty, and he was just standing there saying, this is what it's like and this is what's happening. For most of us in Second Life, that's a whole new kind of experience with Linden Lab that we've not had for a while.
It can only be applauded, in my opinion. So here are some excerpts. Midway through, you will hear questions from the audience asked by Phelan Kormal, a.k.a. Kevin Feenan, who is on the Executive Committee of Virtual World's Best Practice of Education. Here we go. Here's Ebbe.
First, I feel very strongly that the education sector or the education market is a very important partner, and it's important to us to make it a great product for all of you. If we can provide a great service to you, you can become great evangelists for us, for the platform. I think there are many times that you're pushing in areas in research, thinking about how to use environments and technologies like this differently from sort of your main consumers. So it's a very important group of people. I'm here to start the dialogue and the conversation to figure out how we together can figure out where we can go from here. In terms of service, I think I am working with my legal counsel to figure out how we can make it more obvious or very obvious that the creators of the content own the content, and that we obviously have no intent of ever stealing your content or profiting off of your content independent of the creators in some fashion. The current terms might indicate that we somehow have some plan to steal people's content and profit from it for ourselves without benefiting the creator, and that's obviously not our intent at all. It would be very damaging to our business if we started to behave in that way, since this whole platform is all about the content you all create. And if you can't do that and trust that it is yours, we're working on some simple tweaks to the language to make that more explicit. Brand, I know brand has probably been an issue for this community. At times, depending on how you arrive at Second Life, whether it's our homepages or advertising you might see advertising or content that talking to other communities that's maybe not so relevant to this community, but is relevant to other communities. And it's a challenge we have, that we have an incredible breadth of content creators for all kinds of purposes, and this is kind of a unique and for Second Life, and it's something that's, I think it's incredibly important, is to support everybody in what they want to do, and to have that many different types of communities with that many types of interest and creating that many different types of content. We want to enable that, just like we all want to have those rights and freedoms in the real world. There might be some people that are interested in my position on sort of the metaverse and the open sim and interoperability and that whole category. I think primarily I'm mostly focused, for starters, to just get the verse part right. And then we can sort of think about meta later on, at least for me. And I'm happy that other groups, including Philip and many others, are thinking about how to push meta forward. But I think we still have so much work to do to just make the verse part of metaverse a much, much better experience, much easier for normal consumers and creators to be able to come in and enjoy and use. And it's, to this date, with all the work we're doing, it's still too difficult for most people. And this is the challenge, that you ultimately end up with a small or smallish, I mean, we're pretty big, but still relatively small in internet speak as to how many consumers and users can participate in this product. I'm very excited that Facebook stepped up and bought the Oculus team, because I think that is a big step to legitimize and express or indicates to the market that this is not just a niche thing, but this is something that will have an extremely broad implications for a lot of people. And we have the luxury of being sort of the ones that have been working on what a version of a sort of a virtual experience can be, probably the most advanced to this date. I trust that they will do the right things that will benefit all of us, new innovative hardware and things that will combine with Second Life. With the Oculus, we've done work for primarily focused on your viewing experience. We really didn't do any work yet, not that you can see anyway, in what the user interface for that would be. I'm sure many of you who have tried it realize that once you have the Oculus strapped to your face, the keyboard sort of disappears, and it becomes really hard to interact with a complicated product like Second Life. How do you communicate? How do you chat? How do you navigate? So those are areas that we're really interested in exploring, of how we can make sort of complete changes in how the user interface and how you interact with the world, and how you navigate around and communicate and do all the things you want to do without being reliant on a keyboard and mouse ultimately.
Do you feel that communications between Linden Lab employees and content creators are important?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the content creators is what makes all of this that we're sitting on and looking at and interacting with every day, possible. Without you, it would be just blank space in here. We're not in the business of doing content. We're in the business of empowering content creators to create experiences that then in turn draws in other users to experience those and share those. We're sort of breaking it down to three key segments, I think, as we think about how we look at customers on a go-forward basis. There's the consumer, there's the creator, and then there's the entrepreneur. Understanding how we understand those audiences, how we further sub-segment those audiences, how we have conversations with those audiences about what we can do to enable them, to empower them, because the better job we can do to empower content creators to succeed, the better content we'll create, and the better Second Life will be for all of us. So we're all about that. So it's kind of crazy to me that the question had to be asked. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude or anything, but it's so obvious to me, and it's obviously clear to me as well that when I first came here 2 months ago, that the general communications channel with all of you and us had unfortunately deteriorated from where Second Life was many years ago. I've known Second Life from the beginning, spent quite a bit of time with Philip and some of the board early on to understand Second Life, use Second Life, understand even the culture of the organization, understanding the relationship between Linden Lab and the users. When I first came here a couple of months ago, I was kind of shocked at what a tremendous, difference it was from how I remembered it many years ago. I would say, in sort of, I was probably the most engaged with it or involved with it back in 2005, 2006 or something around those years. And so it was a little sad to me, but it also was extremely low-hanging fruit to just start opening these channels, starting conversations. And whether it's me tweeting with you all or being on forums, I try as much as I can to participate in these conversations. And we've changed internally the culture as well, back more towards where it used to be, where we're more open. Weirdly enough, when I got here, there was actually a policy telling employees that they could not be in World as a Linden. So we reversed that policy a couple of weeks ago, and I made explicitly a deal of spending time myself in World. All my experiences of going in World and meeting with people, completely unannounced, just hang out with people, has been super positive for me. It's been a lot of fun. We do want to be more transparent. We do want to definitely participate with you so that we can get your feedback and learn from you and correct things based on what we hear from you. But sometimes we actually learn more from watching what you do as opposed to listening to what you say. I've found that, the customer is often wrong when they ask for something specific. Now, when they say I have this pain or I have this need, they're pretty much always right. But when they say it needs to be solved this way, they're usually wrong. And again, many of you, I'm sure, is right at a number of topics many times, but it can be really distracting for a team that's trying to deliver something to get, that variety of input. So it's a double-edged thing. We have to do it. We have to be more transparent. We have to involve you more in how we do and what we're going to do and what the priorities are. And at the same time, in order to stay sane and be able to do it in a efficient manner, we have to sort of keep some control of that.
Can we expect a more aggressive media campaign to correct some of the quote-unquote bad media narratives?
It's an unfortunate thing. I don't know how much of that, historically, I wasn't here, so I don't know how much of that is self-inflicted versus the dynamics of the market, sort of taking it to places. Now, certainly, I think there are things we could have done historically to maybe control the message a little bit better. Never mind that. That's happened. That's past. Looking forward, it's obviously in my interest to make sure that people understand the breadth and the depth of what Second Life has to offer and not be pigeonholed as an adult sex place or any other vertical for that matter. It's not something that's exclusive for education or something that's exclusive to vampires or exclusive to sex or exclusive to any subject matter or category. Just like real life, we want to allow anything and everybody. Looking back, it seems to me that Second Life got overhyped too early. The notion that Second Life or a product like this or a concept like this would somehow maybe displace the internet as we know it was obviously a little bit swollen head type of thinking maybe at the time. What we wished for and the reality sort of were a little too far apart. That's something that we want to correct, obviously. And I think things like Oculus and the market now, again, starting to embrace the whole idea of virtual reality and virtual worlds and all this. So it's sort of, there's a big opportunity for us sort of to restate what we are and what role we play in all these things that are happening. And this is something that Peter and I, we chat about, and how do we do that? And when's the right timing to do that? We don't necessarily want to go out there and overpromise again and get a backlash again. So we want to be careful. And at the same time, we have to realize that, we spend a lot on marketing, whether you agree with it or not. And the conversion rate for people coming to Second Life and ultimately ending up inside of Second Life and actually having an enjoyable long-term stay with us is not super great. It's just you have to be really committed. You usually often have to have someone from the inside sort of pull you in because you have a really strong reason to go in there. And it's either because we're passionate like ourselves here in this place or someone sucks you into this experience. But if you're not kind of uninitiated and you don't know anyone who's there and you just want to go in and see what it's like, you have to be really determined to make it all the way through and start getting value back. That's not a simple thing to solve, but we certainly believe that they are solvable, but it will take time.
Philip was on a couple of days ago, and he was doing our opening keynote. The biggest obstacle he was mentioning the biggest obstacle to mass adoption of virtual worlds is, in general, a technical issue. Or do you feel that there's some more deep-seated fear, perhaps, in the general public, reservations to engage this way with other people? Is there a need, perhaps, to study this further on a psychological, sociological basis?
It's probably easy to say that it is also a technical issue because unless we do something technical, nothing in the product will change. So it's all technical. And I don't know if we can just have conversations and let the technology be the same and expect change. I mean, the product and the technology has to change to create new opportunities and change. But I think there's probably been an underinvestment in user experience. It's a technical problem, but it's not necessarily just a technical solution. Understanding how people think and how they function and how you make something intuitive it takes a tremendous amount of work, and it's not always obvious, and it doesn't always look like a big project or a feature. It's sometimes it's the absence of features and absence of things that make something intuitive, and it can be very, very small things, and it could be very, very big things. It could be easier way of finding communities and users that are relevant to you that you want to engage with. I think it's some of a lot of these parts that have to ultimately take it to a point where it goes from a product that's appealing to a few million to something that's appealing to hundreds of millions. But there's obviously no doubt in my mind that we will get there. It's kind of like what you do with a mobile phone today versus 10 years ago. And there's like one company that figured out how to make that, transition. I think those kinds of advances need to happen in the area we're in as well. And they will. We just got to make sure that we do a lot of those instead of someone else doing it instead of us.
So that was CEO Ebbe Ahlberg. And now for some reaction from the educational community. Liz Falconer, Professor of Technology in Advanced Learning at the University of the West of England, and Stylianos Mistakidis from the University of Patras. Let's listen to their reactions to Ebbe's pledge to reconnect with the educational sector in Second Life. I started the interview by asking Liz, who, by the way, also teaches an MA in education in virtual worlds, what she thought of the ubiquitous bikini ad campaign Linden Lab is doing, and how does that perhaps make it more difficult for an educator to sort of sell SL for educational purposes. Here's Liz Falconer.
I understand Linden Lab's position in that the market they're trying to hit is very broad. I mean, I have to be honest, it's unhelpful. Some of the large-breasted, scantily clad women are not helpful. It's not anybody's got anything against it. It's just in this context, it's not very helpful. It plays to a stereotype. It plays to a stereotype of a young male gamer. And that's really not what we're trying to aim at. Nothing against aiming at young male gamers for education, but there's lots of other people, on the planet as well. From the point of view of the people that you have to convince in universities, they already have that sense about these kinds of technologies, and they have quite a narrow sense. What we have to do, I think, is make it fairly clear that there's a differential between what we're doing. And I tend to say to the director in our university that, our students can get on a bus and go to the centre of Bristol and do whatever they like in the real world. And they're at far more risk than they would ever be in a virtual world.
Stylianos, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think we shouldn't see that the issue is so narrow. So Linden Lab, yes, it has a dominant position in the market, but it's hardly the only one. So we should enlarge it and see a broader view of the field and of the sector. And in this perspective, I think that when it comes to the road to mass adoption, the quick question is why actually you use Facebook in order to come in touch with your friends, and you can use Skype in order to, communicate inexpensively with someone who is abroad. So what is the killer application for virtual worlds? Why do I need to do that? If there's no need, then we are, as human beings, we are trying to be as cost effective as possible when it comes to energy and anything. Our brain tries to get the maximum gain with the minimum costs. And of course, there's not just one solution. So, for example, we can definitely argue about education. And of course, I was very happy to hear Philip Rosedale refer to how virtual worlds can be useful for massive open online courses, because that's exactly also the topic of my research and my dissertation. So, but however, we have a lot of research supporting that health, when it comes to health and change of behavior, virtual reality and virtual worlds can have a huge impact, social impact that goes back to the physical world.
You both mentioned other virtual worlds that are out there, and I was going to ask you, what are you referring to, mainly OpenSim? Because I don't see any other competitors here right now that can do what Second Life does.
Yeah, there's nothing else that can do what Second Life and or OpenSim can do in that sense, in the building sense. However, if you look at something like, I suppose that's kind of not true in that you've got things like Minecraft, and Minecraft are starting with educational licenses now, so we're going to look at some of those and see what we can do in those sorts of environments. It's rather more focused, though, Minecraft. It's not got the kind of world sense that Second Life has, to my way of thinking. We've looked at Unity 3D, and I'm fascinated by Unity 3D, not because it's got the ability to build things in it directly, but because the fidelity and the definition that you can get in some of the artwork is fantastic. So I mean, our view is very much John Lester's view, Pathfinder's view, as he says all the time, is you use the right tool for the right job. And so what we're not going to do is get locked into anything and then take a side.
I forgot to ask the most important question up front, because this is in response to Ebbe Altberg's keynote. Overall, what do you think? Stalianos, let's start with you. What did you think? Did he hit all the right notes? Or is it just talk? Or do we have to wait? What was your immediate reaction when you heard him?
Well, first of all, obviously, he's trying to, repair the damage that has been done in the past. And that's definitely a good start. However, of course, we need to see actions to do some burning questions and some demands that, or some issues that, such as the terms of service and so on, and other issues. In the larger picture of things, I see that Linden Lab and Ebbe Altberg will have to determine the vision for Second Life. I see two different ways to go into the future. The one, a idealistic versus a pragmatic approach. And of course, the one is conservative, the other was revolutionary. The conservative approach is, okay, we have a service, a product that works. Okay, we'll continue improving on that, fixing glitches and problems. And okay, we have had our success and we'll continue building on top of that, which is, of course, a safe way to go. However, provided that technology can enable this new vision, they could take a revolutionary road as well, about open protocols and open source for as the foundations of the metaverse for the 3D web or the 3D internet. And here I see another opportunity for them, because Ebbe has identified that, okay, we have consumers, we have creators, and we have also entrepreneurs. Now, and of course, Philip Rosedale also referred to the importance of the tech side of things. Now, when it comes to the tech side of things and the user interface, when it comes to creator, for us it's fine. We have been able to ride the learning curve and be successful and create.
Yeah. We're all piano players. We spend a lot of time to learn the piano.
Now, when it comes to the consumers, now this is the opportunity, because all the new hardware that is coming can help the consumer part for them to come on board. So they don't need to learn all the blows and whistles of the viewer and all the different things. They can just, put on the Oculus Rift and use the controllers and Kinect or, the different cameras that detect their movement, and then move on and then have a seamless, easy experience into enjoying, consuming, and participating in whatever we as creators and entrepreneurs create in virtual worlds.
If I understood you correctly, by a revolutionary, you mean that they could be the leader in the metaverse, especially because there's so much competition coming.
The different models we have to see and try to see in the tech sector to see what kind of models there are. And of course, there's the Apple Store model. So you have one company creating one kind of platform with software and so on. And okay, creating the whole thing. And you are invited there to participate in a very limited and very specific way. That's more or less what Linden Lab has done as well in the past. However, there is also the approach, which is again more based on open source, of, for example, Moodle or WordPress, where you have the core. It is open source, so of course a lot of people can see, inspect it, and be trusted. And then, of course, you can enhance it further and use the power of the crowd, of the people involved, with creating plugins and other things that can be hugely important and useful for the whole community, and they increase the value of the whole platform as well.
Listen, to you, after Ebbe or while he was talking, what went through your mind?
Firstly, he's open, which I think is great. I think one of the senses that we've had as educators working with Linden over the years, well, actually, is that we can't work with Linden. We are customers, and that's it. And we're quite arm's length customers. And that's not that good, actually. I think that the education market and the education use is big in virtual worlds, and I think we would be worthwhile, getting a bit closer. I think he also said some very realistic things, which is right. So rather than trying to promise the world, the virtual world, promise everything, yes, we'll sort that out, yes, we'll sort this out. He was very clear about some things will be prioritized and other things may not be such a high priority. For us as educators, what I really need to know is that, not to get my way on everything, because I'm not going to get my way on everything, but I need to know where I am now and where I'm likely to be in the future, because course planning and activity planning in education takes, it's a year to plan anything, and then when you've planned it and it starts running, it's running for 2 or 3 years before it can stop again. So the momentum in education is strange. Well, not strange, we're used to it, but it's different from perhaps some of the quicker momenta in industry. My idea about the future, it's probably dangerous, isn't it, always to say this, but one of my ideas about the future is that the sense of virtuality and reality will get a lot fuzzier at the boundary than it currently is. Yeah. So things won't either be real or virtual. There'll be this wonderful, hopefully, mix of what works. So our students can start with simulations in Second Life where it's completely safe. They can't come to any harm. That they can get things wrong and learn from the mistakes. Then we can get parts of that into the real world where they can practice in a real world context, and then they can go on into real world context.
That's how I envision the future too. And it's interesting, there's already a lot of competitors to the Oculus and also more to Glass coming online. I just saw one called True Player Gear, which has outward-facing cameras. I'm looking actually at Ebbe's transcript to get back to him real quick. He actually did say we need to get the verse part right before we get the meta right. So I'm sure that suggests that they're probably going to hunker down a little bit longer, fix things before they go into grand, big plans. And that's kind of what Hypergrid does with OpenSim and Maria Korolov. That's what she was suggesting a couple of weeks back, that Linden Lab could get on top of this.
It's a business model, and it depends where you're starting. Now, of course, you're a company, you have stakeholders, you need to, to provide profit, you need to produce profit, and of course you have shares and so on. So that's something, that's why I'm not sure whether it's actually possible. However, I need to warn Linden Lab here, because creating the community and having the people there and being in a dominant position right now, it's not enough, because as soon as the next big thing or another platform which does it right appears, of course we're going to be there, we're going to embrace it as well. And so I think that Linden Lab needs to realize that the content creator and the user generation is their true currency, the active users. So we need to go deeper. If you can convince all the people who are involved in virtual worlds to actually work and improve the product, it's going to be huge for them. So that's more the revolutionary way and vision that I see. But obviously when it comes to seeing it pragmatically, it's probably more, I'm not sure whether it's realistic or if the risk is worth for them to go this way.
Both of you and everybody is talking about what is the obstacle to mass adoption. Now, Philip Rosedale is convinced it's technology, for the facilitating of the hardware and all that kind of stuff. I asked that question to Abby, and Abby said something like, the problem is technical and the solution is human, or something very smart.
Yes, I thought it was a very, very good answer. Yeah. I remember that answer. I thought it was a very, very good answer, because he's right. I'm not sure the problem is entirely technical. I think, going back to Philip, is right, that the interface has been difficult to an extent to get used to. And for education, I think there are two elements. It's got to be cheap, or free, preferably, but certainly cheap, and it's got to be easy and quick. And because the way education is, there's no slack in the system, there's no money in the system, certainly not in the UK, and I guess it's similar in other countries as well. There's no money or slack in the system to spend a long time developing something, so you've got to be able to pick it up and run with it, more or less. One of the things that Linden might do is look at going more for a web-based model than the kind of viewer-based model. But I understand, not all the technical, but some of the technical is why that might be very difficult, and keep all its affordances at the minute, because it's very important. It does keep all its affordances. One of the issues, again, if you think about something like Second Life, if one of the students wants to use it anywhere, they've got to have admin rights to download the viewer. Big deal. You know, if it's on the web, it's just automatically immediately available because everybody's on the web. Just very quick example in relation to firewalls, because the kind of firewall that we have at the university, which is not the most advanced in the world, and they are looking at changing it, but it's what we've got at the minute. The fact that Linden, because what they don't want to do is give an overall protocol allowance for everything Linden just to go through the firewall. Every individual IP address, believe it or not, that Linden use, so all the Amazon servers and everything, has to be individually identified and punched a hole through the firewall for it. You can imagine what happened just the other week when some of the server IP addresses changed, and we couldn't see any clothes on any avatars. They were all grey, and it took us ages to work out with IT services what was going on. So that is a practical kind of issue and the thing is that it doesn't have to be very many of those issues before educators give up, because they haven't got the time. So if it's not immediate, if you can't do it right now, if you can't do it from anywhere, if they get any student complaints at all about not being able to access something, that puts them right off. Because education is, by its nature in most countries, pretty much all countries, is massively institutionalized. And particularly higher education, where Stylianos and I are most active, is hugely institutionalized. And those institutions can be pretty conservative.
Stylianos, I want to ask you, do you have anything to add to Liz in terms of mass adoption? What's the crux here? Is that fear that I always talk about, am I exaggerating that there is a fear of engaging with an avatar?
I'll tell you some from my own experiences. First of all, when people are hearing about 3D virtual worlds and the 3D environment, they most of them associated with games. So it's a game. So depending what is your approach towards games, that's defining things. If you're approaching it as I do, one of the things that I do in the library of the University of Patras to provide an educational programs for K-12 children, they love it. And they are hooked and they are engaged and it's perfect. When I communicate and I approach a professor and I'm saying, hey, we can use this to innovate education, you say, nah, I don't think games will work. We don't need them. We don't need games. Now that we have a better grasp when it comes to games and we're able to study them more scientifically, we can see that one of the things that is ailing virtual worlds, and specifically Second Life, is the fact that it's not a game, meaning that you don't have a purpose, there are not rules, and you don't have restrictions. You have rather a sandbox environment. So you are in the field of play, where you have something you can play, you have complete freedom. And so that's a good thing. However, when it comes to the mass consumer, it's more difficult to play and say, come over, yes, of course, and serious games and epistemic games, as we also
But you told me yesterday in the pre-interview about intrinsic motivation, and that's where I agree with you, because I love the fact that you're thrown in there. Well, you have to figure out what to do. There's a lot of people who want to put more gamification, I guess, aspects to a virtual world. I don't like that.
But it's easy to explain. It's easy to see. You know why? Because they see the adoption of massive massive online games. It's huge when it comes to compared to virtual world. So they say, okay, we should use that in order to attract more people. So it's quite the easy, the obvious solution to the problem. However, it's not that. Instead, I see that you have a different approach for different audiences, that we can somehow make this transition from play into purpose easier and more seamless. However, that's where a lot of other third parties can play. Linden Lab shouldn't be like the USSR, providing everything for everyone. Instead, they should be somehow enable people to do. So they should do as little as possible and create the ecosystem, the platform, and let people do their work and be motivated to do stuff.
We started this conversation, I think Liz was talking about, or both of you were talking about these unique affordances. And I'm working on a video now with a woman who teaches chemistry, SL, and you guys all say the same thing, that the that the retention is better with information, and why do you think that is? I mean, this is something that I find difficult to tell people. Again, maybe it has to do with how people view games, because how can they retain something when they play in a stupid game, you know?
For me, what's fascinating is that there are a number of things that are fascinating. Over the years, there have been lots and lots of learning theories developed, and two of the strongest for me have been theories around experiential learning and theories around situated learning. And we've known for a long time that adults in particular, if you put them into particular situations and particular contexts, they learn better than if you just do it as a theory. But we're not able to do that in real life 99 times out of 100 because it's difficult, or it's unethical, or it's dangerous, or it's expensive, or it's all kinds of things. Now we can do it. And what amazes me when I have these conversations with educators is, why on earth wouldn't you do it? Now you can do it. Why wouldn't you put people into those situations? And I think a couple of things happen. One is that people can, if they're not familiar with virtual worlds, and the other thing, it's very difficult to actually describe what happens in a virtual world because it is utterly and absolutely experiential. They're the two things that we found on the MA that have really, really stood out to us. One of them is the socialization and the gelling of the group, which I have to be, and I'm being honest about this, I'm not just saying this because I would do anyway. The gelling in that group is stronger than any I've seen in a real life group in 25 years of teaching. And that's the honest to goodness truth. I'm not making that up. And the other one is the enormous amount of creativity that the students demonstrate, far more than I've ever seen in students in real life situations. And the reason for both of those, I think, is shared experiences. And in fact, I think Ebby mentioned it, and I'm pretty sure Philip mentioned it as well, the importance of sharing experience. Once you start to use it in a social manner, sharing that experience. I mean, as a group, the community of practice that's formed is tremendous. We've been everywhere. We've been to Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids of Giza and got lost in the Great Pyramid. And the fact we got lost in there, we all had a good laugh, and we all had to help each other out, and we all went off to see the Temple at Amarna. And all of that sticks in all our memories. And as tutors, that's the other thing I need to say as well, is it changes the role of the tutor. The tutor is no longer, and in fact in my mind should never have been, but anyway, and I don't teach like that anyway, but is no longer the sage on the stage. You know, they are no longer the person in front of that group of people telling them what they know and expecting them to remember it. As a group, we share experiences and we all learn, and the tutor's role is a lot more about guiding people and about signposting, and rather than it is about knowing everything and telling them everything. And that, to some tutors, is a threat.
There's a dozen of studies that have shown that when you want to increase retention and fact and information recall, if you're using stories, you can be far more effective in teaching than just providing the information. For example, when you want to provide information, you provide it with a leaflet, and instead of that, you provide it in a context of a story where someone has been there and has done something and so on. So inside of the story, you get all the different facts. People remember it because they somehow remember the story, and that goes back to the cave age. Virtual worlds is a perfect medium, a perfect platforms to create stories that we can actually live. In 2011, in the framework of the University of Washington Virtual World Certificate, my class designed and created Maya Island. And I built there a simulation learning experience for you that you can experience mythology. So instead of saying, oh, this is what happened, you were actually challenged by the gods, since you are the champion of the ancient Maya ball game, to go in the Maya underworld and play against the gods. And people were going there and they were feeling like they're in hell. They're saying, oh my God, I'm burning. It's so hot in here. You can imagine their avatar was there and they were saying, it's so hot for me. You see how you can actually influence emotion and you can evoke emotions.
Well, thank you. I'm going to stop recording.
Well, one more phrase if you want that. We've seen in the context of what Linden Lab can do or should do and so on, and referring back to their role that is in a centralized economy or so, it would be suitable to say, ask not what Virtual Worlds and Linden Lab can do for you, ask you can actually do as a person who resumes responsibility of what's going on in order to be the change and facilitate the change around you.
Oh, I like that. A virtual world citizen.
Yes,
as citizens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very quickly, what I'd like to do is get a much wider view on what we consider to be disability that we can cope with in education, because we do tend to look at it as being physical, right. Visual or auditory. It tends to be those three. Oh, and dyslexia is the kind of the big one that we tend to see. What we're enabled to do in virtual worlds is to cope with those disabilities more properly than we can, because we nod at them. In attended courses, we nod. We say, oh, you're a social phobic. Oh, I'm terribly sorry to hear that. Yep. Sit in this classroom with 100 other people and freak out. So in virtual worlds, we can actually properly start to take some account of that. All of these kinds of issues are really enormous issues for education. And I think virtual worlds and virtuality, whatever that is, and various forms of virtuality have got such a lot of promise in helping us to widen access to people who've been denied it.
So that was Stylianos and Liz. We have many interesting links relating to their work. Also, there's a call for papers. Check out the link we posted on the blog. If you have ideas and experience in learning using cyberspace, submit your paper. Also, I had to cut this from the interview. There was a brief discussion on the so-called Hole in the Wall project from Dr. Sugata Mitra out of India, an experiment in self-teaching among disadvantaged children in rural communities. We linked to it on the blog as well. Absolutely fascinating what, forward-thinking folks are doing in education. We're already at the end of the show. Joe, what are your recommendations, cool things to do over the weekend other than going outside and smelling the real flowers? Is there anything? You sent me a satire that I found hilarious of the Oculus Facebook, of the Facebook Oculus.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen like this, but it is quite funny. And this is exactly the nightmare people are having when it comes to the combination of virtual reality and Facebook. But I'm pretty sure this is exactly what's not going to happen.
Well, it's been pointed out time and again also that several ex-Lindens are on the Facebook team. Corey Andraka, formerly Corey Linden, co-creator of Second Life, and he has spoken out for openness many times. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
If virtual reality is going to have any kind of Facebook interference as intrusive as in this video, it's going to fail and people will just not accept it, because I'm going to say it again, immersion is key. It's what we want the most. And anything that's going to get in that way will eventually get annoying.
You immersed yourself in 1920s Berlin. Are you interested in buying a book from Joe Yardley?
Go on, buy it.
See, now that you wouldn't be opposed to.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a pop-up. I'm sure advertising is going to flood the virtual world. But, in 1920s Berlin, there's a lot of advertisement already. It's just part of the world. If you're visiting a city in real life, there's advertisement everywhere. So if you're going to visit that city in virtual reality and you see the same sort of advertisement everywhere, that's not going to bother you.
All right, what I'm going to do over the weekend is I'm going to rewatch a marvelous machinima that was just released, produced by Pookie Amsterdam and directed by Russell Boyd. I'm bowing in front of you, dear sir, Mr. Boyd. The Time Traveler Part 6, A Baby Universe. I know how hard it is to make machinima, smooth lip sync sets and wrangling the extras. This is really, really well done. And I gotta say, what frustrates me the most is that when people see machinima out of Second Life in particular, they go like, oh, this is sort of an amateur's attempt at Pixar. No, it's not. Machinima is a separate art form. It's real-time acting, real-time animation with a certain amount of chaos on the ground, just like a good indie movie, for instance. You can prepare as much as you want, but you also have to improvise. You have to integrate what's happening while you shoot. You have to capture the moment. So it's very different from digital frame-by-frame animation where you have sort of complete control.
Someone should make a documentary about making machinima.
Okay, lastly, of course, Strawberry's Flat Ebbe meme. There's a Flat Ebbe that Strawberry Singh put out. You can buy it on Marketplace for the incredible amount of $0 Linden dollars. And then you can hang out with Flat Ebbe and take pictures and put it into her Flickr group. And it's hilarious what people came up with. It's just totally awesome.
This is a really nice idea, and I can see she also did that with the previous CEO. What's his name again?
Okay, well, a lot of stuff to do on the weekend. Watch Machinima, watch goofy satire videos, and hang out with Flat Ebbe. That's it for the show. Thanks for listening, folks. Call us, write us, send us music, post to the Flickr group. Goodbye, Joe.
Auf Wiedersehen.
The Drax Files Radio with Joe Yardley, #1 in USA, is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Leap Motion.
Wait. Just because you do the station ID now every week doesn't mean you can't mess up. Come on.
The Drax Files Radio with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Leap Motion, Bot Girls Identity Circus, Caravel Designs, Vika Creations, Humanoid Animations, Escapades, Botanical, Death Row Designs, Nantra, Angel Red Couture, Fallen Gods Incorporated, and Landscapes Unlimited. Special thanks to myself
again
for providing the station ID this week. Contact the show via Skype, DraxFiles, Avatar DraxFiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.
That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm excited to be here, because I know we can solve this, and I know Second Life and Linden Lab are in a front seat of being able to make that happen. That's my dream, that we make this something that a huge number of people can participate and enjoy and contribute. I don't know if I feel the need to go talk to psychologists about how to convincing people that this is a safe thing to do.